My name's Parsons. This is my colleague Adam Bexson. We're standing in for David Brooks this week. We'll be talking to you about a couple of points: the pensions bill, what's going on there, the triple lock pension for retirement, and also about Gen Xers potentially sleepwalking into retirement. So Adam, I understand there's been lots of stuff going on within the House of Lords and House of Commons recently with regards to the pension bill. Do you want to just give us a brief outline of what's going on and what the implications are of that?
Absolutely. So hot on the heels of last week's proposed amendment around salary sacrifice and pensions, we've had another proposed amendment to the pensions bill, but this time with respect to investment. So the pensions bill at the moment is focusing on one thing in particular, is a bit of a hot topic, which is mandation. So looking at getting pension funds or default pension funds to invest in the UK. So the House of Lords batting this one back as part of the process of putting new legislation in place. And this does seem to, I think, follow public feeling, because what we're seeing here is the House of Lords saying, is it right that government should decide where people's investments are? And actually, if we're looking at what we've seen out there in the press as well, I'm just looking at some stats down here, yet 72% of people not trusting the UK on investment decisions. So whether that's right or not, we could see really good performance as a result of seeing more investment in the UK. But with a lot of things around pensions, it's about perception, isn't it? If people feel that their fund isn't invested in a way which is right for them personally, is it going to impact their levels of engagement with pensions?
Yeah, no, I think that, like you say, it makes sense, doesn't it, really? There should be a sense of caution. I suppose when you do look at models like the Australian model, where they have already got this in place and they do invest quite heavily internally, it has been, I think, pretty successful. So watch this space. It's about getting it right. And, people are going to be a bit concerned about their own money, I imagine.
Absolutely. It's always one of those things with perception, engagement, how we feel. So it will be interesting to see if that proposed amendment results in any changes to that legislation that's working its way through.
So Adam, I understand that there's some changes been proposed with the triple lock and the state pension. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I think it's probably worthwhile highlighting that it's speculation made as a result of comments that Torsten Bell made around the triple lock, but it does bring it back into focus again. If we think about why the triple lock was put in place in the first place, it was because pensioners built up quite a big proportion of the people in the UK that were living in poverty. So this structure was put in place to get their incomes up. And it has been successful. People, if we're looking at the state pension loan, it has had an impact with bringing that level of retirement income up. And actually, if we look at the statistics now, if we're looking at groups of people that are living in poverty, pensioners aren't the biggest group there. Why is the triple lock coming under a bit of scrutiny? It's really expensive. So I think then you start thinking about other ways that the government can reduce the bill of that. So amending or tweaking the triple lock is one. So maybe rather than it go up in line with earnings, perhaps it could go up in line with inflation rather than earnings. That's a consideration, or maybe just look at a couple of the other measures instead. Another topic, another tool that the government could have open to them, although maybe an unpopular one, would be state pension age. So when that starts to become payable, but it does already feel like a very much a hot potato. There's always lots of talk in the press about how it compares to other countries in Europe, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. I think increasing that pension age could be a bit of a, like you say, hot potato / explosion for the press and for people retiring. But yeah, it is so they've got to do something, because the number of people that are in working age versus those who are going into retirement, it's not changing, is it? I think it's like 4 to 1, whereas it used to be like 10, 12 to 1 many moons,
Absolutely.
when it first came in. So
I mean, if you look across Europe, when we are looking at what pension provision looks like, it's not an easy comparison to make, because a lot of the other pension schemes, pension structures that are in Europe do include an element of contributions in. So actually, when we're looking at it, I think rather than looking at the state pension alone, we need to look at auto enrolment as well, and that will give us a better picture. So maybe we shouldn't be looking at them in isolation. Maybe we should look at state pension and auto enrolment. Yes, you could make tweaks to a state pension, but maybe now auto enrolment's in place, maybe more of a focus on how it interacts with the state pension is a sensible thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Good shout.
Kelly, I did see some speculation or talk or focus in the news with respect to contribution hikes, some fresh calls for contribution hikes. Can you talk us through that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some research, and completely see this all the time, actually, when we're doing things like member engagement and understanding and pension funds, etc. That Gen Xers, so that's basically myself, people born between 1965 and 1980. I'll let you guess where I sit in that. About 54% of them are basically what they say sleepwalking into retirement, in the sense of thinking that they've got, because now we've got auto enrolment, they've got pension schemes, but obviously if you remember, auto enrolment came in 2012 at 1%. So it was, quite a few years of not really that great high contributions, plus with the I say removal, but the less and less availability of decent defined benefit pension schemes. We're seeing so many people in that zone, particularly the Gen Xers, who just don't have a decent pension pot, and they will potentially just be relying on state pension, which obviously we're talking about saying, yeah, it's not too bad, but are people unwittingly rolling into retirement without actually really knowing what they've got, how much they've got, and actually that it potentially won't be enough for these things. So it's a bit of they're in that zone. It's a little bit of a worry zone where they probably need to be thinking more, and I think there's a lot of people, as I say, are sleepwalking into retirement potentially, and not going to have those pots of money that they would hopefully like to have when they eventually retire.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you look at retirement and you think about spending patterns.
Yeah.
And then you look at the way our culture has changed, particularly over maybe the last 20 years or so, the growth of social media, the impact that has on how we spend, our approach to spending. So maybe it's partly about making sure that the pot is big enough.
Yeah.
So some of the reports I've seen, they talked about aiming for 12 or 14% as a total.
Yeah.
But maybe there needs to be just as big a focus on how we spend, what our relationship with money is like, what our relationship with spending is like. Because if we get that under control, we won't need to build up as big a fund to give us that retirement income. Yeah,
absolutely. I totally agree there. Yeah, a lot to be done around that. And I think a lot of it is about education, really. People
absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. We talked about a few things there, triple lock, how the pensions bill is working its way through, and those fresh calls for contribution hikes as well. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.